Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. I am also the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast, along with my wife Amanda. We investigate everything paranormal, be it ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, cryptids, lake monsters, river monsters, and anything else that's paranormal or not normal. So, uh, I tried to do a couple podcasts last week, and what the heck was that? All right, look back into the door. Something flashed. Okay, so, anyways, I tried to do a couple podcasts last week, and on my phone, and for some reason, Zoom decided not to record them. And I got home to see if I could edit them. They weren't there. Asked for help, got some help, did it again. Nope, gone. Sorry. So, from here on out, when I use my phone, I'm gonna have to wait for that mic to show up. Hopefully, it'll be here on Thursday of this week, and we'll be basically just using the video camera and trying to figure out a different setting than the car for you guys to kind of sit and listen or watch or whatever. Anyways, yes, those are some haunted dolls over my, I guess it's my right shoulder. And then there's paranormal activity that does happen in the doorway there behind me. If you keep an eye out, you'll see a little shadow, about 4 feet tall. I think it's one of the little kids that's attached to the dolls behind me. So, yes, office is a mess. I've been working. Last weekend, we didn't even have a chance to go out and do any research just because there was so much other stuff going on. Amanda and I have been going nonstop every weekend, whether it's Bigfoot research or UFO, trying to wrap up this UFO case. Every time we try and wrap it up, somebody comes to me with new information. And it's like, well, we got to go check out this area. And then we sit there and we watch for hours and hours and hours. And we've been skunked. So it seems like when you're looking for these things, they don't appear. But when you least expect them to show up, it's like, crap, where's my cell phone? I gotta get my phone out. I gotta get a picture or a video, hopefully, of whatever's going on. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. I've been going through the gear in the closet there, which is, I mean, you've always seen those cartoons where they open the door and all this stuff falls out on top of them. That's pretty much where we are with the gear right now. It's terrible. So, anyways, that's some bookkeeping stuff. We are working on our second show, which is Bigfoot related. I know, like I said, and I've said it many times, a lot of our fans on here are Bigfoot fans. So yes, we will mainly be doing Bigfoot for the show. That's our premises. We'll be trying to follow, kind of, take what we like from Expedition Unknown, from Finding Bigfoot, and all the other Bigfoot shows I've ever seen, Unsolved Mysteries and stuff like that, and kind of incorporating them into the different shows that we're going to do. We will be doing lockdowns. So we're going to have a lot of different things from a lot of different shows that people seem to like. Sorry, we've got a lot of visitors right now. I think there's 3 dogs just came in here. Anyways, all right, so let's talk about Bigfoot behaviors, because a lot of people have been bringing it up to my attention recently. Anything from playful rock throwing to rocks being thrown over their head, large rocks being thrown over their head, to hearing growls, to hearing tree knocks, to hearing animal noises that just don't seem to be quite what they should be. They don't sound like the animals that they know they've heard. Also, some people have told me they've actually heard like mumbling or old men talking, and it sounds like and we'll get into that too. We'll talk about what I think that is, and then do Bigfoot sweat, and we'll talk about that as well. I do have a friend that supposedly found Bigfoot sweat. Unfortunately, we weren't there with them, and we weren't able to get a sample of that. That'd be very interesting to get a sample of that and get it into a little test tube and send it off to somebody to take a look at it at least. Maybe not make it DNA, but at least kind of tell us what it is and could it possibly be from a primate or a human primate, if you will. All right, so let's start with the playful rock throwing. And so essentially, and we'll talk about whoops and screams and howls and all that stuff too. So for all my believers, this is kind of a show for you. For the non-believers, essentially, just take this with a grain of salt. Maybe you've heard this when you're out in the forest. Maybe it'll be like, whoa, okay, a light goes on. I think I've experienced something like that. Or it could just be, Matt, you're nuts, which, that's fine too. I mean, I don't expect anyone to believe until they've had an encounter or they can say it couldn't be anything else but. And you can put ghost, you can put Bigfoot, you can put demon, angel, dog man, whatever, UFO, alien in there. So anyways, I apologize. The dogs are playing in the other room and carrying on. What is that? Oh, okay, I see what that is. Let me move this down here because it looks like it's something. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with the rock throwing. I've experienced this. I have another client that is experiencing it right now, where they're basically just sitting somewhere. I was walking up. Let me start with mine, and then I'll go into hers. That might be a possible show, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, her experience, but I'll give you kind of some examples. So we were walking into Black Star Canyon, and a lot of this will kind of be covering Black Star Canyon because I haven't really had any rocks thrown over my head out here in Texas, but out in Orange County, California, and I've been talking to somebody about this too, who hopefully will take over and start doing research out there and hopefully having their own experiences with Bigfoots. But so I was walking into Black Star Canyon. I just parked, and I think there was 4 or 5 of us. We were walking up, and we got about, 30, 40 feet, and on the side of the road, where there was a bunch. Basically, if I need to kind of explain this for people that haven't heard me talking about Black Star Canyon. Black Star Canyon is up in the Santa Ana Mountains in Orange County. It's part of the Cleveland National Forest. Actually, just kind of butts up to it. Black Star Canyon was originally basically a place where they mined low-grade coal, and it was mined by the Black Star Mining Company. So basically, that's where Black Star Canyon got its name from. It's from the Black Star Mining Company, and I think they mined in there for like 8 or some odd years, and then basically they sold out and moved on, but the name stuck. Also, there's always been a lot of paranormal activity in this location. It's one of those places where I've always said that you can basically go out there and anything could happen. You could see a Bigfoot, you could see a ghost, you could see a shadow person, a UFO could fly over your head. You could see aliens, you could see a crypto creature, you could see the rake, you could see anything, dog man. Anything's possible out there. That place is just a really strange area. It seems to have its own energy. There is a fault zone out there, and so I think the earth there kind of creates its own energy. There's also a water source right next to it, and basically that's Irvine Lake. And then you've got the Santa Ana Mountains. The Santa Ana River that most of the time actually runs underneath the ground. But when it does rain enough, it actually runs on top of the grounds. If you've ever heard of the waterfall up at Black Star Canyon, that happens. It goes through an old mine. Water drains through an old mine and essentially pours out into a pool, which is really cool when it actually happens. So with El Nino coming, maybe that'll happen this year for some people. All right. So we were walking in. Again, it's just a fire access road. It used to be an old highway, a single lane highway for cars to go out to Riverside. And then when the Tiga Highway was put in, and then the 91 was put in, they closed it down because it was just too dangerous. It's just a dirt road that basically is, there's been multiple accidents out there where cars have gone off the sides, or there's been collisions or whatever. And so essentially, we were walking in on this dirt road, and now it's basically a tourist attraction. They made it tried to make it a tourist attraction back in the day, back in the 60s and 70s. And it became very popular, and then it became popular with teenagers, and then it became kind of a place where they didn't want you to go because there were so many things happening. I mean, there's been multiple murders up there. There's been gang things that happened, other things that have happened to women, which is terrible, and stuff like that. So, and there's been multiple deaths reported. I believe that there used to be an old town that was inside the valley, and during a fire, it went through and killed most of the people. Um, Supposedly, like, hundreds of people died in that fire. It just wiped it out. It went through so fast that they couldn't even get out. Anyways, so we were walking up this fire access road. We were parked. We were walking towards the gate, which is probably about a tenth of a mile up the road. On the right side, where I forget the name of the road, there's a road that turns off and goes into another area that which you're actually not supposed to go into without permission. And then if you keep walking down the road, it basically, turns into like a Y essentially. So you go to the left and you walk down towards the gate, and it was probably about 9 or 10 o'clock. And as we're sitting there, one of the people ahead of me goes, "Hey, somebody's throwing rocks at us." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Oh, well, there's just like little rocks." So I walk over there, one lands on my feet. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And they're just pebble size. I mean, they're not real big. And it was kind of like playful. "Hey, we're throwing rocks at you. We're not hurting you. We're not doing anything else. We're not trying to scare you." I don't think they were trying to scare us out of there, but it was just coming from the bushes, and you could hear something moving around in the bushes. It wasn't a person. I shined my light in there. I couldn't see anything, but it wasn't a person. We know it wasn't a person. You could see into the bushes. Whatever was over there throwing rocks, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a ghost. Um, it was just being playful. And so I picked one up and threw it back in there, and it stopped. But my friends, if you keep going up about a mile up, you'll get to where a place where I call it where the trees grow over. This is on the left side of the road. On the left side of the road, as you're walking up, that's where the river comes through, the Santa Ana River. And essentially it's kind of like a highway for the Bigfoots. I mean, it slopes down maybe 5 or 6 feet and then flattens out down there. And it's real easy to walk on. It's pretty flat ground. There are rocks down there. There's some big rocks that I think they even brought in, or maybe have been exposed over time. But mainly it's just sandy stuff. And so essentially, I left the trap cam down there. I made the mistake of kind of stepping over my boundaries that day. Anyways, that's a completely different story. So my friends were up there, and this is a place where we think that somebody was hung. There's been multiple entities seen in this area, and everything from like a biker going by on a bike and then disappearing, looking just like us, like a full body apparition, totally, 100% to look like us. I mean, look like a normal person. And then there's another entity up there that will sometimes light up the K2s. Sometimes they'll show themselves in pictures and stuff like that. And then you got the mine that's probably about another, I don't know, 100 feet up from there. One of the mines. There's mines all over the place up there. And they are dangerous, by the way. There is gas that you can't smell. If you go in there, you're probably going to kill yourself. So just FYI, happened to a couple of kids over in Trabuco Canyon. They went into one of the mines and basically were suffocated by the gas. All right, so getting back to the story. So they were up there and they were doing ghost hunting. They were doing an EVP session, and we just happened to walk by them, and we were doing our own ghost hunting, and we were going to go up much further, about 2 or 3 miles in to the switchbacks, and that's more ghost hunting related. And maybe I'll talk about the ghosts on at another time. But they stopped us. He's like, there's just like little rocks being tossed over at us, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. At that point we hadn't had that happen. The rocks happening to us, the little rocks being thrown at us, happened about 6 months later. So I think it was juveniles. I think it was just juveniles playing around, having fun, kind of toying with us to see how we react, see if we run, probably, and to probably try and scare us off without, hurting anybody, which is exactly what they're doing. So yeah, rock throwing is kind of common. Then you've got the other kind of rock throwing. Um, we were in. I took a ghost tour up there one night, and some people didn't want to do the ghost tour. They only wanted to do the Bigfoot research with me, and so I basically took this family in. I think there was 7 or 8 of them, and we were up by the gate, and we were just kind of listening because we had heard some things. We thought we heard a howl or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, but the mom, she had a night vision binocular, and so she was walking ahead of us, and she was. Let me explain how what this looks like. So you walk in the gate, and there's an embankment. It goes up maybe 15 feet at a slope, a real steep slope, and then levels off, and then kind of comes back down. There's a little bit of a berm, maybe a 5 or 6 foot berm back up there, and then it levels off there. And then there's trees like all lined up all along the edge of that berm. So it's the perfect place. It's like the perfect lookout point, pretty much. You can see a long way. You can see all the way down to where the cars are parked. You can see all the way up to that bend, and it's a really good place to watch. So essentially, she gets ahead of us, and she's looking up there with her night vision because she kept hearing something. And all of a sudden, she's probably about 10, 15 feet ahead of us. All of a sudden, she screams bloody murder. And I go running up there. I'm like, what? And she's like, there's a Bigfoot up there. And I didn't physically see it because I didn't have the night vision. But all of a sudden, you see a shadow just kind of back away, like back down the berm, as if somebody was in a shadow and they were, but you could see their outline and you could see them back off. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I think that was a Bigfoot. So we had a pretty eventful night that night. As we're walking down, we went past to where the entry was. We got about a quarter of a mile down, maybe a half mile down, and out of nowhere, the daughter, she was wearing a backpack, and I gave her the K2, and she was having a lot of activity on the K2. There is a spirit out there who is very protective of young girls and just younger kids. And I'll get into that another time. I can't remember the name of the ghost, but she's also very popular in San Juan Capistrano. Let's just put it that way. So anyways, she's lighting up the K2, and all of a sudden I'm standing behind her. I see like a pebble, boom, hit literally bounce off of her backpack. I'm like, what in the world? And she turned around, why'd you do that? I'm like, I didn't do that. And her mom saw it too. She's like, no, he didn't do it. And she freaked. She wanted to leave right then and there. She started running. I'm like, no, don't go running. All you do is excite them. And so, I mean, that pebble came out of nowhere. I mean, it came on a line. Whatever threw that had to have thrown it probably at least 100 yards on a straight line and hit her backpack. I mean, it literally came screaming down. And as we're standing there, the barbed wire fence on our right just starts violently shaking. And I'm going, what the hell? There was nobody there. And I don't know how it's violently shaking. The other one on the other side was not shaking at all. And it was just right where we were. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm pretty sure that there was a Bigfoot down. The Bigfoot must have been in the tree area, off on the right side of the path, and essentially it like shook. Was standing behind the tree and basically was able to shake the fence, I think, pretty violently. And So yeah, that was pretty crazy. If you're curious about this, I've done a whole thing on Black Star Canyon in a podcast before, or in a kind of in a presentation mode. You can go onto our YouTube channel and see that. Um, Also, if you're on our Rumble channel, for some reason, videos from YouTube are not loading over there, and I can't seem to upload anything to our Rumble page for some reason. I've closed the page, I've opened it, I've turned off the computer, turned it back on. I've contacted Rumble, not heard anything back from them. They haven't contacted me about anything. Again, I posted an alien video, and I don't think they like that too much. So we'll see. That's the alien podcast we did last week. Anyways, so moving on with behaviors. So if for some reason videos aren't loading to Rumble page, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll have to figure out what's going on. We're just growing like crazy over there. We're almost at 500 viewers, which is awesome. So again, we're also growing a lot on our YouTube channel. So I have to give a shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking our channel and giving us all these thumbs up. We really appreciate it. And leaving comments. We really appreciate it. If there's something you guys want us to talk about, there's a specific thing or whatever, let us know. My focus right now is on the shows. That's why there's been a lot less podcasts lately. So once I figure out how to get the shows done quicker, the podcast should come back up, 2 or 3 times a week, hopefully, if not more. Once I get this little mic that attaches my phone, I should be able to do more podcasts as well, either while I'm driving into work, maybe doing a 10-15 minute podcast, or at work too, if I'm just sitting around waiting for crews to do their thing. All right, so let's get back into the podcast here. You guys don't want to hear me ramble on about that. So another thing, let's talk about sweat, because my friend David, he's an avid Bigfoot researcher. He's been doing it at least as long as I have. He is an extremely smart guy. This guy, basically, from what I hear, he worked on NASA projects and did other things too. But he's like a rocket scientist, and so I think he might be retired, to be honest with you. But anyways, he still does other things. He still works, but he doesn't work for NASA anymore, I don't think. So he has Bigfoot across the street from his house. He has juveniles. He's seen them up in the trees. He's gifted them before. We'll talk about gifting too. So essentially, he went over there one day after he left some gifts. And basically what he does, and I've talked about this before, is he leaves a paper plate covered with peanut butter. Basically gives peanut butter jelly sandwiches, grapes. He leaves Nutter Butters. He leaves chocolate chip cookies. What else does he leave? He leaves a couple other things, just sweets. The juveniles seem to really like sweets, and they seem to be pretty well behaved. They seem to, from what he saw, he actually saw them partaking of this. They shared the sandwich, they shared the cookies, they shared the grapes evenly. So that's cool. They seem to be pretty intelligent and seem to be very caring of each other, if you will. Anyways, so he was over there one day, and he was down in the national forest down by where Joe lives, and he was basically trying to track Bigfoots. And it was hot. It was like 100 degrees, and it's very humid where they live. It's even more humid over there than here. And so he was sweating, and he thought he saw one. And so he went to the area where he thought he saw one, and he found this liquid, but it was almost like it had oils or something in it. It was reflecting like purple, if you will. It was clear, but it had like a purplish tint to it. So, if you've ever seen like oil drop into water or gas drop into water, it kind of shows with a yellowish circle, if you will. That's kind of what he described. So unfortunately, we weren't there to get the sample of it. We didn't know him at this time, But it would have been really great to get a little swab of that, put it into a little uh, test tube, and basically maybe set it off and see if we could get any kind of data off of it. But so yeah, supposedly they sweat. We've been looking for it ever since he told me that. I've been looking for it. Um, so that's another thing that they do. Um, Gifting. We kind of talked about gifting. One thing that they do is sometimes they'll come and take things off people's porches, which is interesting. Um, I've seen a lot of different channels that have people that will gift for them. They'll pick a certain spot, and they might leave like a doll, or they might leave a banana, or they might leave some grapes, or they leave an apple or a granola bar or something. Where they'll basically leave that, and then what happens is they'll come back a little while later, and they won't have seen anything, but there'll be like a rock or a stick or something else, like an animal a skull or different things, like twisted up sticks, or they just bring different interesting things. Sometimes they leave like bottles, old bottles that they found out in the wilderness, and they'll drop that down and leave it there for the person as a gift back. So that's pretty cool. Sometimes people leave crosses. Sometimes people leave marbles, and sometimes they'll move the marbles around. I know of a lady that would make a pancake for this one, and she would leave it out on the fence post, and she actually would watch the Bigfoot come walk down, take the pancake, and walk away. So that was pretty cool. I used to when I first started gifting, I used to leave power bars. I don't leave them in different places. I leave them along the fence or whatever. I didn't really have a specific place to leave them in Black Star Canyon because there's fences on each side. You can't go off into the wilderness without permission. So I was kind of, stuck basically leaving things wherever I thought they would come and find them, where I saw them cross the roads or whatever. I would leave stuff there. And sometimes I come back and find them gone. Sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes they'd be still there. So that was one of the things I used to do. Another thing I used to do is when I used to walk down there, I had a big Maglite, a 4-cell Maglite, and a 3-cell Maglite too. I would sit there and bang real hard. When I first got there, I'd bang on the telephone poles. And I could not hear anything back most of the time. I think I heard one knock back one time. But I wouldn't hear any knocks back. And then I'd start walking in. It was kind of like, hello, I'm here, and just to let them know that I was there. And now, I mean, like at Joe's, if you go up to Joe's camp or you go into anywhere, like we were out in the National Forest the other night, and it's part of our show. Hopefully we caught the knocks on audio and video. But you hear, and then you hear, like softer, 3 different places. You hear one loud, and then you hear one a little less loud, and then one a little less loud, and then sometimes you hear another one behind you. But it's I think that's their way of communicating. I think that's I'm over here, or one knock I believe is where are you? 2 knocks is I'm like coming your way, and 3 knocks I think is watch out, danger. So talking about knocking, there's also something that I think that they do. I'm not sure if they're clicking their fingernails together or they're snapping their fingers like we snap our fingers like this. But it sounds like rocks being clicked together. That kind of a noise. If you've watched any of our videos on Bigfooting, from time to time we do capture that on video. That happened to me at Black Star Canyon. I was walking in, and I wasn't doing any Bigfoot research. I was actually doing ghost hunting, and I had a K2 out, and all of a sudden I hear like rocks just. I'm like, what the heck is that? So I stopped and I listened, and I kind of made the same noise back with my mouth, and it happened again. It mimicked me. And then basically this went on for like 10 minutes until you hear like this god awful scream come from way up the mountain. Excuse me if you're watching. My nose, my allergies are going absolutely nuts. My nose, my face itches. Anyways, so yeah, essentially that went on for 10 minutes or so. I recorded the whole thing. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough IR with those old Sony Handycams to essentially, um, basically see what was above me. Talking about the berm, it's on the entrance, and I talked about the berm here. Something was above me. There was something on the berm above me, and it was making those rock clicks. I could hear it moving around. I could hear it sometimes breaking branches, and I'm guessing it was probably a young juvenile Bigfoot, and basically, um, warning the other Bigfoots that, hey, he's coming. And then there were some kids that had taken off up around the bend, and I don't know how far up they got. They probably got up by the mine, and they heard the scream, and they came running. I asked them what had happened, and they were just like beside themselves. They couldn't talk. They were so scared, and they took off real quick. So I don't know what they experienced. I wish I could have gotten what I wish I could have documented what they had heard and what they saw. And but they literally ran all the way down to the gate and basically passed me. And I think I stopped one of the guys. I'm like, what happened? And he's like, oh, we gotta go. We're going. I'm like, oh, okay. Um, so again, I don't know what happened. I don't know what they experienced, but there was like a normal Bigfoot scream, like an actual scream. And it was much longer than that, much louder. It echoed through the whole canyon, and it was way more coarse, and it was like threatening, if you will. So I think it was screaming at, I don't know if it was screaming at the kids or if it was screaming at the juvenile to shut the hell up, which is what I think happened. I think it was trying to tell the juvenile to be quiet and stop clicking rocks. But I started out with my tongue kind of mimicking it, and then I'd heard the clicking before. So I had drumsticks. So I'm tapping, tapping them together to essentially make clicking noises back to try and mimic the noise, and it was pretty close. And whatever it was actually just responding to me, and it was really cool. But you guys can go back and watch that video. Anyways, so they do rock clicking, and I think that's kind of a playful way of them communicating, and I also think it's a way for them to kind of let the other Bigfoots know, hey, they're coming. Someone's coming. That happened to me at Joe's camp as well. We were walking up, and it came from one side of his property, and then there was activity where we were on the other side of his property. I've described Joe's property before. It's like a football field. It's about 100 feet, 300 feet long, and probably as wide as a football field. He has 55 acres, so could be longer, could be shorter. I don't know. But it seems, and the shape might not be exactly perfect, but there's a road on each side pretty much, and they're old logging roads. And then, of course, the road that goes up to his property is an old logging road as well. But anyways, we were walking on the left side of his property, and we were walking into the forest over there, and that's when we heard the rock clicks come from the other side, kind of maybe a scout watching us walk in there. And it was like, hey, he's coming. Mm-hmm. Hey, he's coming. But again, I think the 3 tree knocks that happen also sometimes can be used that way too, if they don't want to click their fingers together or click the rocks together or whatever. Another behavior, the whoops. I believe the whoops are done primarily by females. I think for the whoops, I actually have heard in person when Christy was out in the woods, and you hear whoop, 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 as it seemed to be moving away from her. I think it was more like like you hear, like somebody was sounding, like they were sounding the alarm. Basically, it sounded like it was moving away, and then she encountered two very large Bigfoots. Uh, they're hard to see on camera. Now we have better equipment, of course, and we'll be able to see them better. But as we continue to add to our technology, we're gonna be able to see so much stuff out there. It's gonna be crazy. Um, but that's part of the reason we keep asking people to donate towards the IR flashlights and other cameras. I think at this point, I figured out the IR situation. We now have 4 really good cameras that basically can see pretty far, and then the bigger camera that we just got, that camera seems to be really really good. I mean, you can zoom in. I was at we were I thought I saw a Bigfoot in the shadows, and when I was doing a call, and I was actually able to zoom in with the camera with the IR light on, with the IR flashlight on with that camera, and you could tell there was nothing there unless it had moved, and I don't think it did. I'll be reviewing all that video here in the next couple of weeks, to try and get that done too. So, like I said, if you're curious about the show, it's a slow process right now. I've been working on it for 6-8 months, trying to get the right gear, trying to make sure we have all the right stuff for the shows. I've been working on setting up locations, constantly talking to people, talking to witnesses, trying to set up interviews and stuff like that. For the UFO stuff, we're not going to basically allow any of the witnesses to come forward just because some of them have been threatened, and that's not cool. I'm not going to put anybody's well-being at risk, or myself or Amanda's, for the show. I'm sorry. It's just not worth it. But they will give testimonials. We have been getting a lot of testimonials from people, talking about their experiences. So they'll basically it'll be, I might read it and you might see what they wrote up on the screen, and go from there. But basically, that's just for the UFO stuff. That UFO show will probably only be on our Rumble channel if I can get anything to go up there. Start to wonder if they're not going to support anything UFO as well. Anyways, let's get back to the Bigfoot stuff. I'm sorry, I just got a lot of information I want to share with you guys. Okay, so what's the next thing? Howls. There's different types of howls, and I think some of them are I believe there's a dominant male, and everybody says, oh, Bigfoots are between 6 and 10 feet tall. No, they get much bigger, and I think there's multiple species of Bigfoots. I think there's a black one. I think there's a tan one. I think there's a brown one, and I think there's a kind of a reddish one, like an orangutan. And they're all different shapes and sizes. They're all different. They all get different heights and widths and stuff like that. I've talked about this many times, but I believe that the dominant male possibly gets up to the 18 to 20 foot tall range, maybe a little taller. I think that they're just giants. I really do. We found almost a 30-inch footprint at Joe's. And I mean, Joe and I witnessed something had to be pushing 16, 17, 18 feet, from basically where I could measure it up to. And the branch that it basically bent down was at least 15, 16 feet. So imagine the arm coming up, where the shoulder was, add another foot or two on top of that. You're looking at 16, 17, 18 feet or more. And then this thing just disappeared into thin air, which is crazy. So anyways, but yeah, I think the dominant males are the ones that make that loud screaming noise, that really long scream. That just seems to go on for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 minutes. I don't think any other animal out there can possibly do that. You'd have to have a set of lungs on you. That would be absolutely crazy. I can do a howl for about, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a little longer. But imagine, and I have good lungs. Imagine like an opera singer maybe be able to do a minute, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. But this went on for like 5+ minutes of just nonstop, high intensity screaming. Um, and it's happened to us a couple times. It's happened at Joe's. Um, Unfortunately, the camera that was basically filming us that heard the scream turned off about 2 minutes in, and then I had to go to the other camera that was facing us as well. We had two different angles, and essentially that camera caught the rest of it. Thank God. The audio, for some reason, didn't really catch much of it. For some reason, ooh, that's really tart. Sorry about that. I had to get a sip of my drink. So, yeah, I think there's different levels of screams. Um, I think that, like I said, the raw clicking is more like a warning. I think the whoops are more of a warning. Um, and then the tree knocks, I think that's more of a locational thing. Kind of like if you're a hunter and you're out there and you get lost, you fire one shot in the air to signal, hey, I need help. And then somebody's supposed to shoot off 2 or 3 shots to basically say, I heard you, I'm on my way, and then go from there. So I think they kind of do that same thing. I think they use that same mentality. And then another thing is their language. So I've heard from many witnesses that they've, and I've heard it too. Like the grumpy old man, language, the stuff that you can't really understand. Um, there are experts that basically are studying this language. Some people actually think it might be Apache. So if you guys got to take all this with a grain of salt. This is all just theory. So everything I'm talking about is just theory. It has been documented and stuff like that multiple times, but still, it's just theory. So if you listen to, if you basically listen to the theories and you think, let me start over. Let me try this again. Sorry about that. I'm brain farting. Okay, so the talking may have originated from, and again, take this with a grain of salt. There's stories out there of the Apaches and the Bigfoots kind of coexisting, and other Indian tribes as well, but mainly Apache. They would come into their tribes. They would exchange things like gifting. The Indians would give them something. They would give them something back. And then they had, supposedly they taught them Apache, how to speak in Apache. There is another woman, I can't remember where she's from. She's either from Oregon or Washington, who said when she was growing up, her mom used to have Bigfoots come to the door and they would like have full on conversations with her in English. And she could understand it. It was not real good English. It was kind of broken English, but they would exchange things. She might give them some sugar or some other things, and basically then they would bring back something else to her, and gift stuff back to her. So I think the theory of gifting has been happening for a long time. If you're lucky enough to find a group of Bigfoots that maybe in their history they used to do that, you might be able to hear their language too. I think some of them do talk in some kind of language. I'm not sure what it is. I would really like to get it on audio so we can have it analyzed and see if it is Apache. Maybe send it out to somebody who speaks Apache and stuff like that. I was listening to a guy's podcast the other day, and his family was Apache. And so he speaks just a very little bit of Apache, and he thought he saw a Bigfoot one day, and he said, I'm your friend or something out in Apache, and it responded in Apache. He could understand what it said. So that's pretty cool. I think that could possibly be real. So what else do we want to talk about? We talked about rock throwing. We talked about howls. We talked about whoops. We talked about language. Um, We talked about tree knocks. We talked about gifting, um, other behaviors. Not really much else I can think of that I want to talk about today. But, anyways, if there's something interesting that you guys want to hear about, leave a comment down below. If you like the podcast, please feel free to leave a comment down below. We love hearing from you guys. Just remember, blah. Just remember, this is a PG rated podcast, PG 13 ish, if you will. We do have audiences of all ages, from young kids all the way up to elderly. So we want to keep it PG 13. We don't want to scare anyone. And I don't think anybody should be really afraid of Bigfoots, even if you go into their territory. I mean, I've had so many close encounters, and I'm still here. I mean, I've had encounters where I could reach out and touch them, and or they could reach out and grab me, but they've never have. They've never hurt me. They've had multiple opportunities to make me disappear or rip me to shreds, and they never have. So even when I pushed into their territory, pushed into their territory, and pushed into their territory, they've never attacked me. They've scared me. Yeah, they have scared me. They've shown themselves to me in an aggressive way and to tell me, hey, you've pushed it too far. But like I said, there's no real reason to be afraid of a Bigfoot. Humans, I believe, have been living alongside Bigfoots for a long period of time. I just think that a lot of the times we don't know that they're there. They're just that stealthy that they know what to do and how to do it and how to avoid us, which is honestly, I think it's a good thing, because I think if we really knew that they existed, or we could really prove that they existed, that basically there would be a whole, hunting club going after them. They'd all of a sudden, a body would appear, and then another body would appear, and they'd start being stuffed, and they'd be in somebody's man cave or whatever, or the heads will be up on the walls somewhere. And I just don't want to see that. I would like to protect these things. I don't want them to be hunted or harassed or anything like that. We're always very respectful when we go out. We're just trying to be in communication with them and form a relationship with them. So, anyways, guys, this is getting a little long. I'm going to try and start doing more podcasts as time goes on. So bear with me as I kind of figure things out and go from there. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for giving us a thumbs up and liking the channel and subscribing. And we will catch you on the next one.